Shine with Rob Brown, breaking it all down. Yeah. SEC, sideline sports on my mind. Rob Brown calling game time, highlight shine, executive mind. Brendan Martin keeping Rob in line. Like, subscribe, share it, tell everyone. Sideline sports, y'all come back real soon. Same place, same time, same tune. From the booth to the field, every Saturday feeling you home. We ride that rivalry, make that living room sound like the zone. From Tiger Growls to Rebel crowds, every hometown heartbeat loud. Rob and Brand turning up that talk like you right there inside the crowd. SEC, sideline sports on my mind. Rob Brown calling game time, highlight shine, executive mind. Brandon Martin keeping Rob in line. Like, subscribe, share it, tell everyone. Sideline sports, y'all come back real soon. Same place, same time, same tune. Hey!
Where's your coffee? Woo! Been a crazy day, Robert.
Yes.
I got a ticket this morning.
I tell you what.
I was behind a young lady going to school. She decided to get on her phone.
Yeah.
And, I decided to go around her, and apparently the state patrol did not like my actions. So
Well, Audrey,
I'll be serving my time
behind bars. Hey, I was on the phone with Audrey yesterday, and she got pulled over.
Well, you know what's happening right now. It's the quotas have gone through the roof. We don't need to talk about it.
Yeah, and she was able to get off with a warning.
Well, she's a hottie. I mean, what do you want when you're a good-looking gal like that? You get off on things. I mean,
very fortunate.
The guy looked at me with Starbucks, and I said, "I'm late for school." He's like, "You're going to be a little bit later." I'm like, "Okay, thanks. You're so cool, buddy."
Yeah, holy shnikes, man. Hey, Rob Brown, Memphis, Brendan Martin, Ocala, Florida, everywhere in between. All of you watching and sharing and liking, subscribing, do it for us as a favor. Facebook, X, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, all the social media platforms. We are there doing it every day on this channel. So look, a lot to cover today. We got Coach Matt Dean in Memphis over at Rhodes College, across from the Memphis Zoological Garden. John Hartwell, I'm guessing he's back in Fairhope, or as Ron Higgins calls it, Mayberry. And in the second half hour of this show, a former Mayberry resident, Ron Higgins from the Shreveport-Bossier Journal, will join us. He's in Baton Rouge with his comments in the second half. Gary Harris, normally on Thursdays. Gary's out on special assignment. But, guys, it is a Thursday, April 9th, 1865. Wow. April 9th. We are here today. A lot to cover. Y'all both went to the Final Four this past weekend. And I'll start with you, Matt. John, you should have heard this conversation yesterday with Dudley Dawson and Vince Ferrara. UT women's basketball team, who was the great David Copperfield? Could he make something disappear like that? It's just gone, Matt Dean. And as a coach, that gives you gray hair.
Well, I have plenty of that. Good morning, guys. I will tell you this. You look at the national champion, their starting five was 5 transfers. So I think everyone understands, Rob, in this new world we live in, especially basketball, it doesn't take a long time to turn around a roster. Let's not forget, 2 years ago, Dusty May inherited an 8-24 team. Okay, now he's coaching a national champion. What's really unique, I think, though, is if you look at Tennessee, it's not that there's no one left on the roster. It's kind of how the second half of the season kind of played out for them. There was a couple press conferences where Coach had called out her team, and kind of like the golden rule. I mean, we tell our players that, in the gymnasium, in the office, everything's fine, but don't go public with your dirty laundry. And I thought she did, and I think some of the players responded in a way that's, they were a little hurt, and now you have the ability to do so. You can leave, and you can actually get paid better at times. I think the most concerning thing, John, was they lost their 5-star recruit. I also saw where I think UConn lost a sophomore transfer, and I don't know if that's a little bit of the blowback from the Dawn Stanley Gino incident as well. And I just want to say one more thing. I know I'm kind of going all off the board here, but the reality of the situation is Gino may apologize for a second time, and him and Dawn may have talked. That's never going away. That's never going away. What happened? A lot of people cry BS on all that after watching what happened.
What I did not see it. So, I mean, I didn't even see what happened between those two. I just heard it wasn't nice.
He didn't even go shake the South Carolina player's hands, Rob. He goes and confronts her about something that he said happened pregame. If you are watching the third quarter interview with Holly Rowe, he kind of goes off on her coaching because of the fouls that weren't being called against her team. Now, she wouldn't have known what he said in that moment, but he just didn't act like someone who's had a very, very successful career at that moment. I'm just telling you, Rob, it was a bad moment. It's not far away from a Woody Hayes moment. If he had put a hand on her, which I'm not saying he even remotely did, but it was not a good look for women's college basketball and Gino.
No, I mean, it's not. John Hartwell is an AD. What kind of conversation do you have? I mean, I don't think I've gotten to learn a lot about the AD position, getting to know you so well. You're cool, but you're firm. What's the conversation you do have with Gino after something like that?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. You, in a position like that, especially at the highest level and somebody who's had so much success as Gino has had, part of the value of what you're getting paid a pretty penny to do is to basically, you're 24/7, 365 on a pedestal and on view. And you're not only representing yourself and UConn women's basketball, UConn athletics, the university, and all of women's basketball. You can't lose your crap like that. You just can't. No matter how heated it gets in the moment, and we've all had our moments, you can't just throw sportsmanship, proper, etiquette, whatever you want to call it. You can't just throw that to the wind. I mean, that's, yes, he's got national championships, and there's the tolerance factor is going to be much higher for him from an AD's perspective and from an administration's perspective. But there are some things that are at the point of no return. That was not quite at it, but as I've heard several people refer to, that maybe not quite as egregious, but on the lines of Woody Hayes coming off the sidelines. I mean, it was pretty serious.
Yeah. I'll never forget that Friday night Clemson Ohio State game. Wow, that was crazy. All right, a few more questions.
Hey, Rob, can I interject one other
Absolutely.
thing? And I know our primary topic normally isn't women's basketball, but here's a perspective that I've gotten over the last, started in Indy, and I've gotten some more information here in the last 2 or 3 days that is plays a significant part in some of these high-profile women's basketball coaching changes, and this may go back to the Tennessee deal too. So I'll take Alabama, Georgia, and Virginia. Those are 3 women's basketball changes that I'm very familiar with, kind of the ins and outs of what happened. And all of those changes occurred because of NIL money. Not that you had a plethora of it, because there wasn't any there hardly. And I'm shocked at Alabama. I wish Gary was on today.
Yeah.
Because I was told from very good sources that there are Sunbelt schools that have higher NIL dollars than Alabama women's basketball. And as it relates to Georgia, I was told there was a conversation between higher administration and athletics, as well as their collective people, that some money that was originally set aside for NIL for women's basketball, that Kirby overspent, that football overspent, and they had to reallocate some dollars. Now, I know there's probably some other nuances to this, but when that happens, I know, there could be some Title IX implications, but a lot of these changes that you're shaking your head at have an NIL implication to them, which it'll be interesting to see how all this plays out.
Yeah, and another question I got from Matt, John, whoever. Okay, we see 20.5 million in rev sharing. Then we're hearing LSU has a NIL budget of 40 million plus. Does that include 85% probably of that 20.5 million plus 40, or does that 40? How do they derive that figure? Anybody know?
I'll let Matt speak to it, but I think that's an all-in number. But so you're roughly 20 and rev share, then you've got another 20 to 25 at least coming from your outside collectives.
Okay. All right. Matt, all right. You're looking at basketball real quick, and we're going to switch into some football. What we just saw, the SEC, 10 teams went to the tournament. Nobody got to the Final Four. Tennessee, got to the Elite Eight, which they've done, I think, 3 years in a row. I read a great article yesterday. Y'all probably did, and The Athletic. They talk about that. I think Bruce Feldman and Stuart Mandel ranked the top 25 coaches as they saw them. One good theme I got out of reading that, and I'd love to get them on the show to talk about it. It's not the SEC doesn't not have money, but the Big Ten has massive alumni bases. But it's what you're doing with the money when you get it. And the SEC passed on Dusty May. The SEC passed on Kurt Signetti. They didn't get those kind of guys. Auburn got Hugh Freeze there, who followed Brian Harsin. So they're digging out of a hole. Matt talked about it. And then Ben McCullum takes most of his Drake team, your alma mater, from there in Des Moines, and moves them over to Iowa, and they get to the Elite Eight. Ben McCullum is going to be a force going forward. And when, we know the top schools in the Big Ten, but when the other schools start getting rising tide floats all boat, that's what's happening in the Big Ten, just smarter coaches, I think.
Yeah, but 2 years ago, we were on this show talking about how great the SEC was in basketball and how dominant Florida was. And until this tournament started, I think all of us on this panel right now thought Florida could win the whole thing again. You know what I'm saying? So Iowa hit a big shot to upset Florida. If that shot doesn't go in, does Florida get to the Final Four? I can make an argument they do. I mean, sure. I think you got to remember the sport. Remember the sport. Guys, in football, with the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, we usually know going in who's the favorite. In college basketball, the roster sizes are so much smaller. You get on a roll. You're well coached. I mean, I can make an argument right now. We haven't even talked about football. I'm ready to see what Georgia's got coming out this year because they played a lot of the young guys last year. And just knowing the track record of Kirby, I think Georgia's my preseason national championship favorite. Now, I'm also curious. Signetti has had the last team that beat them was Notre Dame with Jeremiah Love leading the way, had like a 98-yard touchdown in that game. So I want to see what Indiana does in year 3. And the reason I think they'll be successful, we don't talk about the words evaluation very often on this show, but evaluation matters. Dusty May saw something in those transfers. He put it in the work. He had a vision, and they executed his vision. Let's not forget, Elliot Cadeau, who was the MOP, played for North Carolina the year before. Right? Yaxel was at UAB's roster. Montrez Johnson, I believe, was with the Fighting Illini, who was in the Final Four. You think they could have used them this year? So every coach, it's no different than what Tennessee men are going through right now. They had a significant piece of their staff leave. So now some of those young men are going to want to follow him because he probably Gainey recruited them to Knoxville. But you think Barnes is worried? No. In the presser, he knew Gainey was getting that job before it happened. And he was supportive of his guy. You have to have a great plan, a great staff, and you need to attack it in the portal, and it happens a lot prior. I mean, I'm telling you, these guys that are coming in the portal now, you have to have a capologist on your staff, guys. You have to know from a budgetary standpoint what you have year to year. John, it was interesting what you mentioned about the women's side, because I think that's going on around the country, and I think it's not talked about enough. That's really how the women's game has been hurt by these allocation of funds.
Yeah. John, what he just said, and I'm not saying the SEC won't be back next year. I'm just saying that was the theme of the article in the Athletic, in the column. What do you call it now? Article, column? I mean, it's so different, but it's the quality of coaching. Dusty May, Florida Atlantic Final Four, takes Michigan, wins the whole thing. John, you heard, as well as Matt did, you talked to a lot of people. There's the common term, you rubbed elbows, whatever, but you did talk to a lot of people that are decision makers from around the country. You are in that crowd. What was was there a lot of talk, since it was in Indianapolis, about Indiana football, or do they think this is just a one-off anomaly with Kurt Cignetti, because they've got such a massive fan base, and their business school, I would imagine, is top 6 in the country, and accounting. Here's where your real money comes from. The School of Accountancy. Ole Miss ranked 3rd in the country. Follow the accountants, and that's where the money trail leads, isn't it, John? It really is.
It's just raining. It's just raining money behind me. But here's I read the article in the Athletic as well, and to me, here's probably and I'll kind of combine some thoughts from that, as well as some thoughts from being in Indiana and talking to folks. I think the bigger story is the divide. If you take the Big Ten and the SEC and put those two together, how much that divide, even from, and this is no offense to the ACC or the Big 12, but the gap is widening between the Big Ten, SEC, I won't call it a coalition, but those two, and then the ACC and the Big 12, and then everybody else is, combined to make the caboose, really. And that's, and that is purely driven by, as you say, Rob, the accounting of it. The numbers don't lie. Yes, fan base and number of alums and all of those things, which is a byproduct of your enrollment, is a component of it. But, as Confucius once said, I say that tongue in cheek, life comes down to 2 things: dollars and cents. And I'm not talking about the cents up here. I'm talking about the CENTS, even though pennies are going away.
Yeah, and I'm just watching Matt the cat, so he doesn't eat my Ethernet wire. I've had 3 eaten in the last 6 months. But anyway, you're talking about just following the money trail. Matt, looking at football, and John just laid out the case. There are 2 teams picked in the SEC to win 9 or more games in the preseason: Texas and Georgia. Last year, Ralph Russo and collaboration of writers at The Athletic, before football season, wrote a story. Is Alabama the new Texas? And if you count national championships the way Auburn and Alabama do, since 1970, Texas, with 30 million people that we know of, and all that oil and gas money from the Permian Basin, they've won national championship. And I'm telling you, I love it. We had Mac Brown on the show back in late September. That's one of the classiest. I love him. And my friend Dave Cody was a sportscaster out there for almost 30 years at Channel 7. He's watching right now at Lake Martin. Hello, Dave. Goober says, hey. But anyway, there's a lot going on. Texas has all that money. But if you count national championships the way Auburn and Alabama do since 1970, Alabama has 10 and Auburn has 4. That's 14. And they've played and lost in a few others. Texas, I know, has played and lost in one in 2009 against Alabama. They won it in 2005. Georgia is still the team to beat in the SEC. Cignetti, in that poll, surpassed Kirby. He went from 19th last year to 1st this year. Kirby's the best coach in America. 10 years, 117 wins. And he's 36-6 in the last 3 years, but no top 5 finishes. Make a case for someone outside of those two to win the SEC.
So you're saying outside of Georgia and Texas?
Yeah. Can you make a
Well,
case?
I'm not sure I'm going to make a case, but I'm real curious about LSU with Kiffin this year. I mean, they've put a lot of money in that program, and he's been known as the transfer NIL guy for years in the league, right? Look what he did to build Ole Miss on a consistent basis.
Yeah.
I will say this, Arch Manning coming back to Texas, you would say, not knowing the complete rosters on both teams, I mean, Arch is going to get a lot of support for preseason Heisman voting. Arch is going to get a lot of support for next year's #1 draft choice. And you would think at that position, if Texas does make the college football playoff, which they should, and early prediction, they would have a legit chance to be the one team that could beat Georgia if you're looking at the SEC model. But I still think LSU intrigues the heck out of me. I want to see Ole Miss again with it looks like Chambliss is going to play with the Supreme Court State of Mississippi ruling. I guess, guys, I don't know how that works. So I don't have my eligibility czar, Gary Harris,
Home
on today.
cooking.
Yeah, but I think the thing that's going to be fun this year, I want to see how Florida does with Summerall. I think they're going to take a step. I want to see how Auburn does with Golich. I think they're going to take a step. That's what I'm looking forward, is how some of these new coaches in the SEC with historically dominant programs are going to become more of a factor that we know them usually to be. Georgia's Georgia, guys. And listen, another thing about Cignetti, and I love him, let's not discount the fact that he's had continuity with coordinators. His offense and defensive coordinators have not left him. That matters. That matters in getting your playbook ready. That matters when you bring in these transfers and try to acclimate them to an offense or a defense. That matters. This will be the third year with continuity in that program. They haven't lost staff members, guys. And I think that's something that's very valuable when you're building an organization.
Yeah, I got to be on the lowdown with Lauren Meadows last night on this channel, guys. Watch it Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern. Lauren Meadows, Brendan Martin, and Edgar Thompson, hell of a writer from the Orlando Sentinel, was on. And I told him, I said, it just makes me happy to hear a beat writer that knows his school, knows his topic. He also is quite a golf and Masters fan. And you think about John Summerall. You know him, John Hartwell. I don't. I want to get him on this show so bad, I'll buy you 2 steamer packs of crystals, one with cheese, one without. But I like him, and I think, and I know, I don't have to, I'm not one of these people, I'll believe it when I see it. I see it when I believe it. I believe he's going to win quickly, faster than you think at Florida. And I think Buster Faulkner, offensive coordinator who left Brent Key at Georgia Tech, here's what we know about Aaron Philo. If he's smart enough to pass calculus as a freshman at Georgia Tech, he can learn a playbook quickly. But, John, you heard what Matt just said. Continuity. Faulkner, Philo have been together a while. I think I can make a case for Florida to be one of the surprise teams on the upside. I missed on them last year, totally, but I see it better this year.
Yeah, I mean, and when you talk about coaches in today's world, some of the must-have characteristics have changed. We've talked about it. You still got to have an eye for talent. You got to, develop a tremendous staff and all of those things. But you've got to be a chemistry builder, and chemistry is a component of that continuity. Yeah. And you've got to have a sense of realness to you. I mean, John Summerall, part of what endears him to people, including his players, is he's real. What you see is what you get. His filter, he may need the microphone beeped every once in a while, but you know what? That makes him human. That makes him real. And his players buy into that. The fans, the administration, everybody buys into it. And I think John's John's won at a couple of places. Even go back to his time as a coordinator at University of San Diego. They didn't have unlimited funds. Troy certainly didn't have unlimited funds. Tulane had more than Troy, but it was not an endless bank. And now that he's got Florida resources, I think the sky's the limit. Now the damn competition has gotten a whole lot tougher. There's not going to be any cakewalks in the SEC, but I think he's going to have a ton of success. But I also think, when you look at Auburn and their new coaching staff, when you look at Arkansas and Ryan Silverfield, and I know you have a relationship with him, Rob. I think all of these new staffs, they're coming with a lot of energy, and are all of them going to win immediately and win 8, 9, 10 games? Probably not. But I do think if you look at all the new staffs, Florida is probably built for the most success immediately.
All right, John, I'm going to put you in a crazy position here. Let's say that you are the state comptroller for the state of Florida, and the University of Florida brings you on board because you say, I've got an idea that can help Florida with all of these people that have moved from Pennsylvania and Illinois, New York, New Jersey, Michigan, that live in the state of Florida. Physically, they're there. There's no state income tax. And so a lot of them, they may live in Florida physically, but their money goes back to where they came from. Could you incentivize them to get a tax break on something if they made a contribution to an in-state school, specifically the University of Florida? I'll leave it at that. Come on, man.
Wow,
make a case.
That's Rob may have been on the Artemis here the last couple of days. That's an outer space concept there, but that's hey, why not run it up the flagpole? I promise you could get the universities to have some lobbyists to help do that. And you going to do that to all nonprofits, though, or just to athletic departments? I mean,
strictly
that's
athletics.
Where you run into.
Strictly athletics.
No.
In this
that's
case,
where.
I don't want to go into that, but I'm just thinking about Franz Beard. Y'all, you should hear Franz. The guy is a genius. He gave me this. He breaks down the state of Florida, and tell me if I'm right or wrong. From Tallahassee over to Pensacola to the Alabama line is L.A., Lower Alabama. Tallahassee east to Jacksonville is Lower Georgia, basically, they call it. And then you go south to just Palm Beach, Broward. That's another world. And the central part of Florida, that's why. And then you get over there to Bradenton, Sarasota, and that area, Fort Myers. That's Lower Midwest. And then you get to Miami. That's another state. Then you get into the Florida Keys. You got the Conch Republic, or as a guy one time said at a gas station in Eclectic, Alabama, is that a conch shell? I was like, what? It's a conch shell. But I think that's how Florida's broken up. People don't realize how different, like friends will tell me they'll stay in a hotel in Bradenton on business. You can get the Big Ten network, but you don't get the SEC network. 23 million people, and there are more coming every day. John, I'm telling you, that's going to be something. If I'm the governor of Florida, or if I'm Florida, the University of Florida, I'm going and saying, how can we incentivize people that live in this state to give money to the universities? Doesn't have to be just Florida, because you're not going to get away with that. But for athletics, Matt Dean, that's a possibility. All right, Matt, you made the case about Georgia and Texas. A school that is going to be interesting to watch is Missouri, because Ahmad Hardy, who John knows from ULM, and they've got, I think it's going to be fun to watch because of the quarterback transfer from Florida, who's now going to be the starter at Missouri. Could you make a case for Missouri getting in the playoffs this year? Eli wins. He's won 29 games the last 3 years at Missouri.
He's done a terrific job. The thing before we get into these cases, I think with the SEC, it's really important to see their schedules. There are times when you may have a really good football team with a really good roster returning, and you have 2 or 3 away games that are going to be so challenging. You have to win 1 or 2 of those to really realistically make the college football playoff, because we're going into another year. I don't think we've seen a 9-win team make it. We've seen a 10-3 team make it because of loss in a championship game, right? But I do like the continuity there in terms of playmakers. Let's not forget, though, Missouri's losing some really big-time players to the draft, the NFL draft, which is coming up at the end of this month. And that's why I think scheduling matters, because you can also make an argument. Last year, Texas A&M was very fortuitous with their schedule in terms of SEC home versus away, but they also had a great win. They won at Notre Dame. And that being said, the 9-game schedule matters. Home and away matters because it's not a true balanced format. And the Big Ten's done that for several years now. And I will tell you, just looking at some Big Ten schedules, I have a connection to Oregon, and they have a tougher conference draw next year by who their away games are. I judge a team like Missouri, and I hate to say this, not so much on the roster, but what the schedule looks like.
Yeah.
I want to know where their away games are because I think that matters. Whereas Georgia, it doesn't matter as much to me, their schedule, because they're a proven commodity. And year in and year out, Kirby finds a way to win on the road. That's why I think he's the best coach. I think he finds a way to win on the road. Sometimes it's a missed field goal against Tennessee last year, but for some reason, Georgia always finds a way to win on the road.
Yeah, they really do. Ron Higgins joins us right now, Shreveport Bossier Journal. Left Memphis in 2013. I'm not going to say that was the death, as Mike Fleming called it, the death of Johnny journalism, but damn, we miss Ron Higgins. I'm going to tell you what I love, though. And Ron, I was saying earlier, got to be on last night with Edgar Thompson, a writer from the Orlando Sentinel. And I told him, I said, it just makes me feel good when you have writers on the show, because it's like the teachers that I had growing up. Write it down, take it from your head, put pen to paper. Dan Barron, New Orleans radio group now, my friend from Memphis, WWL, you'll meet him, told me when we started the show, Dan and I are the same age. He went to Alabama. He's still a good person. He said to me, get the writers on your show as often as you can. They're your best guests because they've written it. Look at Buddy Martin. Look at all these guys. First off, thanks for taking time to join us. We made a case. Georgia and Texas are getting the momentum right now in the SEC. Matt said, hey, what about LSU and Lane Kiffin? He wins everywhere he goes.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I'll say this. I mean, I think he's been given more resources here than Ole Miss. I think that's why he came here.
Yeah.
And I think I look at this a lot like I always tell people, LSU fans were angry forever at Saban going to Miami, the Dolphins. He didn't go directly to Alabama. They all believe he did.
Yeah.
But Nick wanted to find out if he could coach at that level.
Yeah.
He got his answer. And I think Kevin came here for that reason too. He wanted to find out what it was like to coach at a place where they was going to give you unlimited resources, where they were this is everything to these people here. I mean, before they had the Saints, LSU was Louisiana's pro team, and now that you can pay players, it probably are. I'd say he came here because he believed that they would give him the resources to everything he needed to win, and he could find out if he could coach this level. Now he'll get ready. He's getting ready to find out, but his spring practices have vastly different than Brian Kelly's. I can tell you that. Walked in the first day of spring practice and he had a thumping, loud soundtrack of rap music. I turned around and said, "I guess Brian Kelly's not here anymore, huh?" It's a quick tempo practice. His whole thing is about offense quickness. Defense having to take care of the offense's tempo. Got a good staff. But I believe. I think LSU got to prove themselves.
Yeah.
I think most of the nation is waiting for them to fail. They want them to fail, all because a guy took a job.
Yeah.
But they're not proven yet. I think Georgia's more proven than Florida. I mean, than Alabama yet. Not Alabama. Texas is. Texas is really, Sark's done a really good job recruiting, and I almost think a lot of times in the SEC, and this sounds provincial, but you have to have coached in it or been an assistant in it to understand the talent level to recruit in it. I think Texas hiring Sark was a great move because he was in here with Nick.
Yeah.
I think he understands the type of athletes you need to be really, really good in the SEC. And Texas has unlimited resources too, because they're Texas. They always have the unlimited resources. And Texas has really had no excuse to really lose or be bad. And they've struggled. I mean, I give Sark credit. He went out and got some great players, and he's had some good recruiting years. But again, I agree about the said about Kirby. Kirby's the only say semi long time Nick assistant who's been really, really good, taking some of Nick's principles, but not being Nick. And I think the problem with a lot of Nick's past guys who have, say, failed, like Muschamp, for one, have tried to be too much like Nick. Just a maniac all the time. But Nick there was a process to him being crazy a lot of times. There was a reason. But I agree. I think Kirby is the best coach in this league. I think he's proved year in and out about winning on the road. Exactly. You've got to win on the road in this league and go to tough places and play. And I rarely don't I always put my money on Georgia most of the time because I don't think Kirby's that good. But the best part about Kirby is he's taken Nick's principles and built on them. He hadn't tried to be Nick. And I think that's been a key for him. As with any program, there's going to be overcome problems. I mean, Georgia seems to set a record for most, being ticketed by police most every year. But, Urban had a ton of problems in Gainesville too. And if you win, they kind of get overlooked. And I'll give Kirby credit. I agree. He's the best coach of this league. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, I love this guy, Perry Mason III. He's one of my favorite viewers. And we really, really, really encourage you to put your questions and comments in here. Perry Mason, I have heard the baseball coach, Jay Johnson at LSU, is not too happy about all the NIL money going to football. And it more than money, you have to still build relationships. I think that is what Summerall is doing at Florida, but you had to transfer that to the field. So kind of two things, if you could go on, then I'll go back to Matt and John and get them involved. But great stuff, and appreciate the question, Perry. A citrus farmer from Central Florida, the Ag Belt.
I asked Jay Johnson about the NIL money in preseason. He seemed to be fine with the money he was getting. But LSU fans, if he needs more money, they'll step up and get more money. They believe in baseball. They believe in baseball. If fans believe in your sport, they'll give you money. Or they think you. Again, that's why I think a lot of times now, like I've said before, when you hire a coach for a sport, one of your major sports, he has to be marketable. He has to be a guy that fans believe in because that coach has to ask for NIL money from donors. And as much as the rest of America hated it, Will Wade was the obvious and only choice to come back as men's basketball coach. The fans believed in him. He was way ahead of his time as far as NIL money. He cheated and got caught. He was a bad cheater. Actually, a decent human being, but a bad cheater. And I think that's what you almost got to get now. You got to get a guy who immediately, even to the big money boosters, I think, okay, well, we'll give money. This guy can win. That's why they went after Kiffin. That's why they went after Will Wade, who won an SEC championship here, and recruited NBA-type players. He's forming the NBA right now. So I truly believe that as part of a coaching deal that you have to get a guy who's your big money boosters believe in, and then everybody else kind of piles in behind there. But Jay Johnson, if he's hinted privately to people, I'm sure people will give him money. But ask him preseason, he was okay. And listen, man, the guy got Paul Skeens for $150,000. Okay,
Wow.
For 1 year. What and everybody was going around here to give him like deals, but I'm not worried about Jay Johnson. As far as being unhappy, like he always says, this is the best place in the world to coach college baseball because of the fans, the support, the stadium, the tradition, everything. So he thinks this is the best place to coach. I mean, unless he decided to go one day to major leagues, and he broached that subject, and he goes on. He's not too keen on that really because he said you got Ivy League people in the front offices making decisions on lineups, and he's not all for that. But I think Jay's going to be here a while.
I do too. John Hartwell, jump in here to this mix, and then back to Matt. I think this is great commentary, and who better than Ron Higgins? You went and talked to Jay Johnson, the source.
Hey Ron, how you doing, my friend? Hadn't seen you in a while, but good to see your face.
Good to see you.
Yeah. Hey, let me ask you this on the Kiffin front. And obviously, I was at Ole Miss for a while, but it's been, 12, 13 years since I was there. But and not even from the Ole Miss perspective, but I know a lot of people have said, hey, LSU folks, they want a coach, not for anybody and everybody, but for their highest level donors to engage, with those donors. And obviously Will did that before. And that's part of the reason why he was brought back. Obviously he can coach basketball too, but so far, how has Lane done? Because I know that was one of the things that he really liked in Oxford was his ability to kind of go hibernate when he was not coaching football and get away to his place in Florida and just kind of spend time to himself and his family. How is that going in the first few months of the Lane train being in Baton Rouge?
Well, he still does that. I mean, he still disappears. And I mean, he still has the ability, even in Baton Rouge, to, go out and eat in certain places, really good restaurants. Without, of course, I mean, the thing about Lane is that it's interesting. He likes to hibernate, but he's going to put on social media where he's hibernating. Always,
right.
He's like, here I am. Where's Lane? He's over here. No, he's in Florida. No, oh, he's over here. Oh, he's in Knoxville. It's like. He's an interesting dynamic. He really is. I think he'd probably be better in press conferences if he went to his office and sat behind his keyboard to answer questions than in front of the media, because he's almost uncomfortable in front of the media. You watch Lane, he's like very careful. He's always very careful the way he's answered things. You get him from the keyboard, he's like, bam, like. So I find that dynamic. But yeah, he's really connected with the public. I think he didn't realize how open and crazy the people are down here until he got here. I mean, of course, he was a grand marshal of a Mardi Gras parade in New Orleans.
That'll wake you up.
Yeah. He's had floats of, a Lane Kiffin float and another parade here. But I think he also knows that there'll be a parade to run him out of town and didn't win.
Yeah.
That's why the whole Will Wade press conference was interesting to me, because they had like a drum corps, a welcome video, all this stuff. And I think I wrote this. I said this is the greatest introductory press conference ever for somebody they ran out of town on a rail. I mean, it's like wow. But yeah, Lane still has the ability to disappear, but right now he's all business. And spring practice started, and I don't think he's wandered off anywhere. Until spring gets over with. I mean, he did decide to do the spring practice after LSU's spring break, which was different than that Kelly had. He would break it up, and I always found that crazy that a coach would, start spring practice, break it up for spring break, and come back. I think I like the coaches who we're going to get all this knocked out together at once, and either on either side of the spring practice, spring break, the front side or the back side, but not split it. But so far he's been fine. It's been the atmosphere is different. Practice has a soundtrack, which I'm so old school. I still don't. I love all kinds of music. I understand why you have to have a soundtrack to practice, just like you have to have a soundtrack to NBA games, which is filtered to college basketball now. You have a soundtrack. I realize that there's fan engagement. I get that, but that's just being an old dude, and I love I like loud concerts just as much as anybody still, but I guess that helps the kids work better, or either covers up the coaches cussing at players for not doing what they're supposed to be doing in practice. Either way, it works, I guess.
Yeah, Matt, jump in here. This is great stuff.
Hey, Ron, I've been in Memphis 35 years, and kind of an interesting comment question for you. Looking back, I used to subscribe daily to the Commercial Appeal, and the talent you were involved with in that run at the Commercial Appeal and what has happened, obviously, with newspaper print in general, and you look at some of the colleagues you've had. I think back, being my time at Rhodes, I've met George Lapidus, who actually for a short time was our AD at one period of time at Rhodes College. Yourself, I think of Jeff Cockins on the radio and TV now, Gary Parrish. I think Dan Wolken at one time had some connections there. Talk about the collection of talent with you at the top of the food chain there, and you were involved with for a long time covering Memphis area sports.
There was quite a, it kind of collected bit by bit. When I got there, we had Al Dunning, who was a really good columnist who I got close to. We had Mike Fleming, who was quite a character. I call him Mr. Cloak and Dagger. He was always investigating somebody about something. And then we had a really good run. A lot of times, the Memphis beat is so huge that I did it for the year I did it for 1 year, football and basketball. This year they fired Ray Dempsey, and the year it was a year after Dana, we started investigating him for all the tax stuff and gambling, and so they put Ron on the beat that year, which was interesting. But golly, yeah, you forgot Mike DeCourcy too.
That's right.
That's right. DeCourcy was, he loved college basketball as much as I did, and he's made a living.
Loved it, yeah.
But it's been a great run of writers. Most of the time, if you're really good at say covering Memphis, especially basketball, you're going to get a job, a national job somewhere. And a lot of people, have gone, like Gary Parrish did that. I never forget Gary Parrish the day he came in and he talked about, the kid in Alabama that recruited was illegally football.
Albert Means.
Albert Means. Right.
I remember he comes back and talked to the high school coach. He goes, this guy said that Alabama bought him. He's on the record. He goes, how come the Alabama was selling this? His coach was selling him. He goes, how can we confirm this? I said, well, let's call some coaches. And the first coach I called was Houston Nutt. I said, Houston, was Alabama trying to? They give you a price right away. Is coach trying to sell him? He goes, yeah, they sure did. So you go on the record with that? Sure, I will. And that started Gary Parrish's career. Another guy, George Willis, went on to be a columnist in New York. His was interesting too. George was an African American writer, the only one we had, and he was covering the Chicks with Bo Jackson, and all the national media came in town to cover Bo Jackson for his debut with the Chicks, and they saw this guy George Willis, and they saw how he wrote well, he spoke well, they liked him. Before we know it, George is gone. He's in New York because he got that exposure. So we've had a great run of writers. I just hate to see, and basically, I helped cover the NBA. I love basketball. But the thing I noticed in Memphis was that right away, you have this conglomeration of SEC fans from all different alumni bases.
Yep.
And I love that. And so I decided that I was going to create this SEC, all encompassing SEC beat where I didn't forget anybody around there. And so I worked really hard on almost everything during the week leading up to the games and stuff that included a little bit of everybody. Like when I went to the SEC basketball tournament, I just didn't sit there and cover an Ole Miss game. I covered Mississippi State. I covered Tennessee. I covered Arkansas. I covered Vanderbilt. It was an all-day affair because I really believed that all those people, those fan bases, deserve to have that coverage. So I worked excessively hard, and I was proud of that I was able to deliver that because it's I know Memphis is big in Memphis, but when you start adding up all the alumni from all the other schools in the SEC is essentially, I mean, Memphis is essentially an SEC town.
Yeah,
Because of the alumni, but I was always proud of that. Look, I mean, I think I was out at Rhodes covering some stuff, and over the years, it was just always fun to go to Rhodes and watch the amazing expansion of facilities. Rhodes College is like, if you don't know, it's like one of these underrated jewels of the South. It really is, academically and athletically. It's a beautiful campus. The facilities are unbelievable. I think that NBA. I think the Grizzlies practiced there some at different times early in their stay in Memphis. So, but yeah, the run of talent we had was quite amazing. I keep in touch with all those guys. I just talked to George Willis the other day. Thomas Harding, who MLB.com covered the Colorado Rockies for years. That's another guy. For years covered high school in Memphis, and wouldn't and he wouldn't wear a watch. I mean, it drove his editors crazy because it's on the deadline, and he never wore a watch. And it would drive our editors like, is he going to be on time? Because Thomas was probably didn't wear a watch, but he just kind of knew when to send the story.
Well, Ron, what I remember, and I'm gonna go back to John about writing. We used to on Sunday mornings get over to Tobacco Corner Newsroom at Poplar and Mendenhall. Remember that place over there across from the Half Shell?
Yeah.
I'm in there. I'll tell you I'll never forget that. I wish I had it on video because it would have gone viral and had 1 billion hits. Elliot Abel was the owner, the kindly man. He had that cigar room in the back, the smoke room. Yeah. I saw this guy walking around. He's got an oxygen tank on and a mask. And he's like going, and Elliot sees him walking around the corner. And he goes, "Ron, good to see you smoking again." I'm like, that is a pure merchant right there, my friend. But we would go grab all the newspapers to read them from writers all around the country. A stack of newspapers from 8 different cities is like going to an art museum and seeing 8 masterpieces because you can't get that color. And John, jump in with Ron.
I miss the heyday of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. It was like their Sunday section in college football season was the amount of writers they had and the amount of places they would send them to was frankly unbelievable. Man, I always kid Karen Rosen, the only person Roy Kramer ever kicked out of a locker room, which is whole other story. When he was Vanderbilt's AD, God bless Roy. Back then, Roy, I don't know if Roy was like into women's sports, but she tried to get in the Vanderbilt locker room after a game at Georgia, and Roy slammed the door foot on her foot. But that was very unlike Roy. Anyway, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, their sports section was unbelievable. Karen Rosen one time covered 3 games in one day in the ACC because they're all next to each other, all different times. I've only done 2 games in a day, like 2 or 3 times. If they're like, if State and Ole Miss were like relatively close, if one of those games were an 11 o'clock game, another one was a 6:30 game, I was going to make it. But that's what I miss, and that's what I would say. That's what readers miss now. But most readers don't read. They're more into like reading tweets and social media, and they're not into really great writing or game stories. I mean, there was a point one time the commercial appeal, and I'll never forget this because Bobby Hall was a really veteran reporter, and just Bobby was different.
Yes, but
a lot of times our editors would come back from the APSC, which is Associated Press Sports Editors Convention, with these ideas of how to do things better or change stuff, and they decided. This lasted about a month. They told us this. We took with the straight face. Says, "Okay, we're not going to write game stories anymore. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to write a feature on a guy in the game and put highlights of the game, bullet points." I said, "Okay, and you want to write a feature on a guy on deadline, basically." So we're supposed to have. We don't know what's going to happen in the game. He goes, "Well, write something about the guy before the game as a feature and then work it into a story." as a future. I said, well, explain that to me. Well, this guy's like, 0 for 14 from the field. Well, what if he gets hurt in the first quarter? All this. And Bobby Hall was the master of doom as far as scenarios. Bobby's like, no, once a guy got hits by a car before the game in the parking lot. What about that? And you had and of course after about a month of this, they realized people don't like this. This is not working for us. People like actual game stories.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's amazing how the business has evolved to where there are very few great writers because there are very few venues that you're allowed to write that way. Anything from Gannett's is awful. I mean, it's formula. I worked for Gannett twice. It's formula. They don't mean that they just crank stuff out. Now all their papers are kind of regionalized. So,
yeah,
the Memphis paper will get a ton of stuff from elsewhere, as I understand it, and people look at, well, why am I reading this? Why? Because Gannett sends that and basically fills in the blanks with your local stuff.
Yeah,
and it cheats readers, and I feel bad about that. I'm glad that I am where I am in my career, because I don't. The loss of newspapers, and I get online. There are some advantages as far as breaking news. There's also online. There's a lot looser journalistic morals that basically you may not have something confirmed, but you're just going to throw it out there anyway.
Yeah.
And then if you finally get it right, basically you can just go back and edit it in, and that wasn't that way in the old days.
Yeah, it wasn't. John, jump in here. This is better than Letterman. I mean, you're getting clarity. I remember all these writers you're talking about, Ron. And I was there when Bo hit that single for his first game. John Hartwell, jump in here. Great stuff, by the way, Ron. And
hey, Ron, I'm gonna make you think back over your illustrious career for a minute. But if you were having lunch today at your favorite meat and three place, who are the three characters that you've covered that you would have sit down at the table with you that would give you the most colorful lunch?
Wow.
Well, this would be a hell of a lunch here, because I was close to both these coaches, and they both probably didn't like each other. Billy Brewer and Jackie Sherrill right off. That's one. God, for Dana, I guess, because I got first. Let me tell you real quick. John, maybe the first person to work Ole Miss that people don't call you coach. Everybody at Ole Miss calls each other coach. If you work in the athletic department, hey coach.
Yeah,
hey, coach.
Hey, our good friend Langston even gets called coach sometimes.
But let me tell you, this is a quick Warner Office story. This is my favorite Warner Office story. I got named in the NCAA investigation with Billy Brewer because I did a story on Peyton Manning, and Billy mentioned him by name. Okay, which is NCAA violation. For some reason, if you're recruiting a guy, it's a recruiting advantage if you mention a kid by name. I have my tape recorder on the table, it's running, so Billy knows I'm taping him. So it comes up like my thing. So Warner calls me. He goes, "Hey, what happened here?" I said, "Warner, I had my tape recorder on the table. He saw it. I know the rule. He should know the rule." And so I used it. I said, I didn't feel bad about it, but I didn't have my tape recorder, because Warner goes, "How am I going to answer the NCAA on this?" I said, "Well, Warner, why don't you say that Billy and I had a miscommunication?" He goes, "Yeah, that sounds good. I'll use that one. I appreciate that. That's a good idea. Thanks, Ron." That's like,
all right,
oh my
guys,
God.
we run out of time. Ron, we're going to get you back on next very soon. We ran out of time. What a treat, man. John Hartwell, Matt Dean, Ron Higgins, Shreveport Bossier Journal, executive producer Brendan Martin. Hey, man, we are so blessed to have writers who tell the stories, and just keep praying that you never retire, Ron. Hey, thanks, everybody, for watching. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. Find ways to help people make the world a better place. See you tonight. Love it.